Welcome to PAATH History YouTube channel. Subscribe our channel for regular notification and follow our official Facebook page, Twitter handle and Instagram. Like our video and comment. Today we are going to discuss about the Vedic society, and this is the second part and continuation of an earlier discussion. Settled life led to a further crystallization of the fourfold division of society. Initially, one of the 16 classes of priests, the brahmanas, emerged as the most important and claimed social and ritual privileges on account of the ever-growing cult of sacrifice and ritual performed for the clients and patrons, mostly the rajanyas or kshatriyas. The kshatriyas constituted the warrior class and came to be looked upon as protectors. The king was chosen among them. The Vaishyas devoted themselves to trade, agriculture and various crafts and were the tax-paying class. The Shudras were supposed to serve three higher varnas and form the bulk of the laboring masses. Most likely the community exercised some sort of general control over them. In this sense, they may be compared with the helots of Sparta. Shudras were not owned by members of the upper classes as slaves, the evidence for whose existence in the greater part of the Vedic period is lacking. A text speaks of 10,000 women slaves captured from various countries and given by Anga to his Brahmana priest, but there is no mention of man slaves. Obviously, their number was far too small to attract any notice. With the emergence of the caste system, certain social norms developed. Marriage between the members of the same gotra was not permitted. This rule applied especially to brahmanas, who were by now divided into exogamous gotra groups. Members of the higher varnas could marry Shudra women, but marriages between men of lower orders and women of upper varna was discountenanced. This was due to the gradual strengthening of varna distinction, which began to appear in social life. A special position was claimed for brahmanas and kshatriyas, distinguishing them from vaishyas and shudras, a tendency which became pronounced in latter centuries. Although rules restricting interdining between the higher and the lower orders had not yet evolved, the first signs of extreme form of social exclusion manifesting itself as untouchability in subsequent times began to appear in this period. Autochthonous people like Chandalas were objects of spite and abhorrence. The family became increasingly patriarchal. The birth of a son was more welcome than that of a daughter, who often considered a source of misery. Princes could take several wives, though polyandry was also prevalent. The origin of the late practice of sati, or self-immolation by the widow at her husband's funeral pyre, has sometimes been traced to this period. But this claim does not have much basis, for we hear of remarriage of widows or niyoga. In contemporary text, woman is classed with dice and wine as one of the three chief evils. A good woman, the Aitareya Brahmana tells us, is one who does not talk back, and this period woman ceased to participate in the deliberations of the tribal council called the Sabha. Yet the early marriage of girls had not yet become customary, and here and there they attended lectures by gurus and learned the Vedas. Gargi is said to have attended a discussion with the sage Yajnavalkya and even to have embraced him by her searching questions. Elaborate sacrificial rites undermined the importance of the Rig Vedic gods, some of whom faded into the background. The priests became the chief beneficiaries of the sacrifices and consequently gained in power. Cattle were slaughtered at sacrifices, often in large numbers. Animal bones with cut marks found in course of excavation at Tranjikera and other places, as mostly of cattle. Public rituals therefore led to the decimation of the cattle wealth, whose importance for the developing agricultural economy can hardly be overestimated. The first reaction to Brahminical dominance and the extremely ritualistic latter Vedic religion can be seen in the Upanishadas, which questioned the efficacy of animal sacrifice and gave primacy to asceticism as a means of achieving salvation, read new meanings in the sacrifice, and propounded the doctrine of ahimsa. The Upanishadic thought reflects a wider spirit of inquiry prevalent towards the end of the Vedic period and centers around the idea of soul or Atman and not sacrifice or yajna. Creation is said to have grown out of the primeval desire of the world soul. In Upanishadas, we find the first clear exposition of belief in the passage of soul from life to life. Souls were thought as being born to happiness or sorrow according to their conduct in the previous life. From this evolved the theory of karma or action, which preached that the deeds of one life affected the next. This doctrine sought to provide an explanation of human suffering and became fundamental to most later Indian thought. By the time of the Upanishads, asceticism had become fairly widespread. Ascetics lived either as solitary hermits or in small groups away from society. Living off its resources, they could not have created counterculture in a real sense, as has been suggested by some scholars. Nevertheless, through self-training, the hermit acquired magical power formerly ascribed to sacrifices. Asceticism thus challenged the supremacy of the Vedic sacrifice or yajna and of the brahmanas who chiefly profited from it. The brahmanas, by way of compromise, invented a formula by which the life of an individual was divided into 4 stages or ashramas. First, he was to be brahmachari, leading to celebrate an austere life as a student of his teacher's house. Having learned the Vedas or a part of them, he was married and became a householder or grihastha. When well advanced in age, he withdrew from worldly life to become an ascetic or vanaprastha. Finally, in the ultimate phase of his life, having freed his soul from material ties by meditation and self-torture, he became a wandering ascetic or sannyasin. In this artificial scheme, asceticism was recommended at the end of a man's life so that he could discharge his social responsibilities before taking to it. The 4 ashramas were not meant for the Shudras, nor was education allowed to the members of the lower varnas. Education began with an investiture ceremony or upanayana, literally leading forth of a boy for study under a teacher, whereby a boy was initiated as a full member of the society. It was confined to brahmanas, kshatriyas and vaishyas. The Shudras were not entitled to it. In Vedic times, girls were also sometimes initiated. Since the rite was thought of as accomplishing a second birth, members of the 3 higher varnas were described by the epithet Dvija or twice born. though later many Kshatriyas and Vaishyas ceased to perform the initiation ceremony. Theoretically, education was open to all Dvijas, though the Vedas tended to become an exclusive preserve of the Brahmanas. The student or brahmachari was trained at the home of a Brahmana teacher for a number of years. The Vedas constituted of main object of study. Education was imparted orally and learning was by rote. Oral transmission of knowledge has been in fact an integral part of Indian tradition. A late Rig Vedic passage draws a lively comparison between the pupils repeating lessons after the teacher and frogs gathering and croaking in the rainy season. The student was required to memorize the scriptures syllable by syllable, and the Brahmanas developed a unique system of mnemonics. But the Vedic people do not seem to have used a script. There is no clear reference to writing in the entire body of the Vedic literature. The earliest surviving specimens of a decipherable script are found in the inscriptions of Ashoka in 3rd century BCE, written in Brahmi, which presupposes several centuries of development. So this is the end of our today's discussion. Subscribe our channel for regular notification and follow our official Facebook page, Twitter handle and Instagram. Like our video and comment. For any query, feel free to mail us. For details, see the description.